Well, hello and welcome to today's show. Hopefully this will go pretty quick. I'm just doing something on heat sinks to kind of back up and support the previous video that you just saw last week. Just a quick review just to make sure that, most people are going to already know this, but if you're young or you're new and you don't really pay a lot of attention to this kind of stuff, it may be a little something worth watching. We've discussed ad nauseum these different expansion boards, and what you see right here is I want to make sure that you get the right board for your slot that's available. This is going to be a 1x slot. It's going to be real narrow on the other side of the card. So here, this is a 16. See how long that is? Right there, right there, right there. So that's going to be a 16-bit, and you might have to do some bifurcation if you get something like that. We're not doing anything like that. That's too complicated. And if you're just getting some E-Ways computer you're trying to breathe a little life to, for a spare browsing machine or something like that, you don't want to spend a lot of money. But $10 here. This is not the brand I use, but it looks a lot like it. You can see this length, that's a x4. This one, see how small that is? That's a x1, although this is a USB to USBs. You get the idea. Just make sure you're going to have 1/4 the speed here, kind of that Pi thing, that Raspberry Pi 5 kind of thing. You got a USB, but it's only going to be by one lane, so that's going to be really slow. Here we're getting 4 lanes, obviously, because it says right there x4. This is going to be one that's going to have, as you can probably tell from the picture, four up here, but your motherboard would have to do the bifurcation. And you know what? Probably if you don't have an NVMe slot already on the board, that most likely isn't going to be a case where you have a motherboard, a main board, that you can cut from 16 bits to 8 bits. That's pretty common, but to break down a 16-bit into 4 4s is not going to be all that common. So something like that top board in that last view is probably not going to be a high percentage win for you, but you probably can get a 4-lane job in a 16-bit slot. That's kind of what I'm doing here. Anyway, that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. Let's get back over to the picture just a tad longer, make this go away. I have 2 types of heat sinks I use here. I use this big giant one, this Whopper one, because I like the design of it. Lots of copper, and I'm using this on the Beast because that water cooled unit, that custom loop, just didn't have a lot of airflow through the unit. And with just that factory little baby flat heatsink on it, I noticed that Linux had locked up on me twice. I think that was after, with 2 different NVMe's, but I think after I went to putting it through the PCIe bus using this card, and it may be that they're getting a little bit warm. So I thought, well, it'll be fun to do a little content. I like this style of heatsink where you're actually pinching the NVMe against a metal kind of a C-shaped channel right here, so it stays nice and flat. You don't torque out your piece of computer board right there at all. These are very thin, so it doesn't warp the board. Gives it nice structure and strength. I put the thinnest piece of heat tape underneath it, the thinnest piece of heat tape on top of it, get that mounted together, and we're good to go. I think it heats up pretty well. That's the first style, the one I use in the water cool. And then I bought 2 of these just because they were cheap. $4 a piece, $5 a piece. They're a little taller, a little bit better, I think. But I bought these because I didn't like the plastic screw length that came with the standard board that I use, right? I have that one board we've seen several copies of. Anyway, it uses 2 little screws through it, and there's just barely a thread or 2 holding onto it. And I didn't like the way it kind of swagged the backside of the circuit board out a little bit. Didn't really like that, so I thought, well, let me just try a little bit bigger one. That particular brand of NVMe already had a real thick little foam piece on top of it for the heat sink to make good contact. It was made for a laptop. Predator it was. Anyway, that's what we've got going on there. Well, we're going to go ahead and change out this tiny little heat sink that comes with it for something a little bit more effective. Now, I don't know that heat has been a problem. This is part of one of these little kits that I have bought a bunch of. This is number 4. I had to send number 3 back because it had been opened, parts removed, and returned, and Amazon sent it right back out. Being as I've had 3 of these, I know how they're packed from the factory, and one was definitely returned and then shipped back out to me. We're running about 37 degrees here, which seems a little bit warmer. It's probably what the temperature of the box is, considering the HVAC system is set upstairs. We're just going to try to see if we can't get this to somehow fit. Well, I think I'm going to use some pads out of my bulk pack I have here rather than the ones that ship with the unit, because I need to make sure I get a good fit. If I can use them, I'll use them, but I may just leave them sealed up. Get a little screwdriver, some screws. Obviously, we have the little clamshell looking thing in here that our device sits in. Some little Chinese instructions of some sort. Of course, the box. I do like the way this brand is done. You see they do put these little stickers on there. Now it does look like this has been opened before. You see how we got 2 of them on it? 2 stickers. Now why would it need 2 stickers of the roundness on there? And I do tend to open mine at the bottom too. I open this one at the top, but I wanted to preserve this. You see, a sign that something's been returned is it's got a double seal, because the first one somebody may have very well cut it, checked it out, put her back together, and of course resealed it with another sticky circle. So anyway, that's that. We're going to take this off and assemble it, see what we get. Well, there is the weight of our little guy. I am weighing that plastic bag, and there's only 4 screws needed to hold it together. But you see what we got going on. Should have some good airflow through that. We'll try it, see what it works. Of course, there'll be 2 thermal pads used in there, and of course we're here at our little coffee scale. There's some burned ones we took out. We pull them off. We filter these out of your coffee so that you don't get really good coffee and then one little ground up little burny spot. But there we go. Yeah, less than 2 ounces. Now I don't want to put too much torque on the PCIe slot. I don't think it'll be a problem, because I don't think that 2 ounces is going to be more than what, say, a GPU weighs. Some of those big long 3 fan jobs really droop and have to have brackets. I think we'll be okay, but I would prefer not weigh that much, but it is what it is, and we do need some heat relief. Now here's the one on my bulk pack. I've got the thinnest size here. I think I'm going to use this one on the bottom and put this on the top to keep the pads as thin as possible before putting the little piece in there. See if, as long as we got screws that will engage, we're in good shape. Well, our drive is nice and flat on the back side. I think we'll be just fine to use such a thin pad against this. I just want to make sure we have good contact. Of course, we have a thin one, the thin one on top to right over there. We'll put her together and see if our screws do engage. Yes, I believe it's going to work just fine. May have to scooch it down a little bit. See, that one looks like it's just right on the edge, while that one is perfectly centered. We're in good shape, I think. It'll fit onto the drive, and of course, it's not really all that heavy, but you know, it's obviously more heavy than this little flat piece of whatever this is, a little piece of aluminum. Hey, appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, if you will, subscribe to the channel, either the YouTube or the Rumble channel, which this appears in. And if you can, check the notification bell or settings to make sure that you get notified when new videos are posted. Appreciate it. And there we have it. It's got a little bit of weight to the side, but it's not too terribly bad. It's got a little thin piece of plastic film over the top. I don't know that we need to pull that off, but we probably will. It'll just get some fingerprints and maybe not look so cool on that copper. But there it is. It fit just fine. Now, do you see how this works with this little latch looking thing that comes over here where we don't have screws? This has got to be the most asinine and irritating, useless function on this quite nicely priced, I'm talking for the seller, not for the buyer, Lian Li 0111 EVO XL. This is just, there's no point in this. This is a waste. A little final touch, I did rework that so that we got the loop on the top, not on the bottom, give a little bit more room for air around that heatsink. Well, I have ordered some of these guys because there is an option that you can get on these type of boards that don't have a heatsink. Now, the problem I've had with the heat sinks in the past is not too bad. There's a slight bow in it. Of course, it makes pretty good contact with this particular type of drive. This is the Predator, and the strange thing about this, the top of the Predator has a foam type of top to it for the heat spreader, and you can see that it's not real thin, and that puts the screws pretty well much at the end of engagement. There's just a little bit right there. Of course, I'm not really worried about a plastic screw or nut falling loose inside of the case, causing any type of trouble, and the little rubber bands do hold it kind of squished down in the middle. But this type of construction, this little caddy, I don't know if you can see it, let me turn it over this way. These type of guys, super thin, but what it is this will stay straight, and when we mount the NVMe down, it doesn't put much pressure on the actual circuit board itself. So we're just going to do this just for the fun of it, just because we had something, a need for a little bit more content. It's something to think about. These are not really expensive, may save you a few dollars. I do expect them to cool just a little bit better, although it's smaller than the heatsink that come with the kit. It does have better fins, and of course this is PCIe 3 with a 4 drive, so it's not really getting hot to start with. If I get this just right, you can see that the heatsink, the little hat style, I don't know what you would call this, channel and heatsink. I prefer these because it allows the NVMe to stay physically flat without any kind of stress on it. Again, it takes 2 screws and some rubber bands, and we can make it work, and I think it actually works fairly well even in hot environments with 4s, with PCIe 4s. But I wanted to get these, give me a little content, try them out a little bit more, you know, just in case it makes much of a difference. You can see, I think, the thickness of that graphene pad on top of the thing there, and that's what was causing me a little disadvantage in the length of these little screws, and I could put it a little bit in there and it helped, but they were just held on by a little bit, and really the elastic bands were doing all the heavy lifting.